All right, here we go, everybody. Sorry, we are slightly delayed getting on, but we are on, and we're going to let everybody file in. Yes, it is Wednesday. Yes, there's breaking news. Yes, we are upgrading our system, and so we hit a little bit of a glitch, and then I had to bail back to an old system. Seven when yes, and I'm hoping that this will be limited glitches we are having. Okay, there we go. Wow. Boy, this is testing me with a potential glitch fest. I don't know what happened with that, but we're going to get this thing on track. So, okay. It can be challenging, folks. Suddenly going along, everything is fine. Out of nowhere, things. But we are going to improve things. Well, we have sound now. Yes. My goodness. But again, we are in the process. Just bear with me, bear with us. We are in the process of improving the system, and it wasn't fully up to where we're going to be, but I can tell you, working overtime to get this thing up and going. Check out the website, dp.com, which brought to you by 226 Cohasset Avenue, West Warwick. Lunch, dinner. Who said drinks in the lounge? And they're waiting for you at the Cohasset Inn. And there's Bill and there's everyone. Again, everybody, I apologize, and I want to thank Pete, who's so patient with the radio. Okay, there we go. Because there is breaking news, granted, but still no excuse. But we were just on the verge of we are in fact upgrading the system, and I understand. When we try to wow, we have more breaking news. Holy cow. Alan Jackson has withdrawn from the Nick Minor case. So that is breaking news. Attorney Alan Jackson, mostly known from the Karen Reed trial, has withdrawn from the Nick Minor case, who in fact is charged with the murder of his parents, Rob Reiner, right, formerly known as Meathead, also famed director. So that is really remarkable. Now, TMZ, okay, is they are reporting this. So I want to just double check. I know we have some breaking news. I want to get to the breaking news. I'm not sure why. I'm being told that there's a minor problem on YouTube, but I know on X we're fine, and minor problem on YouTube. All right, now I'm on YouTube, and YouTube is fine. I know on X we're fine. So I'm not sure why that is. It's actually not. YouTube is playing just fine. So some minor glitches here to start, but we're gonna right the ship, so to speak. Okay, let me get this thing back on track. I'm gonna wait to hear from Nick. I know we're fine on X. I know we're fine on Facebook, and I just double checked, and it seems totally fine on YouTube. So, but it can be frustrating. This is really interesting. Now, to me, the big story is what happened with the ICE agent. So, the ICE agent in Minneapolis actually, and this is insane how they're going after these ICE agents. So, I'm just going to wait for Pete to give me website the okay. because right now at 112, I tapped on YouTube and it seems fine. So I'm not sure exactly the problem he's having on his end. And I hate to, we also have an officer in Uxbridge. So folks, I apologize if we, it's a little herky jerky here. So waiting for a go, and I am dependent on, okay, that's what we were looking for, is those words all set. So let me begin with some breaking news. And I think this is pretty significant that couple things here. And that's why you tune in for the latest. We will get to the situation with Brown University and that very disturbing. But this is pretty amazing. And Alan Jackson is very tight with TMZ. So Alan Jackson has withdrawn. Nick Reiner's murder trial just took a shocking turn. Alan Jackson has abruptly exited the case. So that is remarkable. The Reiner family, and this is, Rob Reiner's son, the Reiner family issued a statement to the New York Times saying they had utmost trust in the legal process, not further comment on matters related to legal proceedings. Alan Jackson is a moment away from addressing the media after withdrawing from the Reiner case. So now I think he's going to be very cautious with what he is. Nick Reiner, lawyer Alan Jackson, withdrawing from that case. I find that very surprising. I find obviously the big story right now is also what's going on in Minneapolis and Uxbridge. But most of the time, when my experience has been, when an attorney that comes onto the case and in this manner suddenly withdraws from the case, it could be, remember, they can't knowingly put someone on the stand or represent someone and make certain statements that they know to be false. So now, without knowing all the details, I don't think he's not going to say anything to jeopardize this. You got to realize, in the world that they live in LA, the Reiner case of Nick Reiner, right? They were at the Conan O'Brien Christmas party. Kids had a guy, he's a man actually, long-time drug problem. And then he stabs to death Rob Reiner and the wife, his mother. So, but there's a couple of different things. When O.J. Simpson initially had an attorney, and then he quickly, that attorney who I think had represented Michael Jackson left the case. So we'll talk about this tomorrow with attorney Stephanie Murphy. But a lot of times my experience has been that something has happened where they don't feel that they can go into court and adequately represent that person. And we don't know exactly what it is, but what you have to know is it's pretty dramatic, because in Los Angeles, the Reiner case is the big case without question, the Rob Reiner case. And so for Alan Jackson, who, the premier LA defense attorney, for him to withdraw from the case, and I'll see exactly maybe what he said, but I think it might be, he's not going to come out and tell you the exact reason. We'll find out from our legal expert, attorney Stephanie Murphy, but that is definitely breaking. But we have breaking news in Minneapolis, and this is atrocious. And this is first of all, boy, the state of Minnesota is just a complete mess. The state of Minnesota is just an absolute mess. So a federal agent shot and killed a Minneapolis motorist when she allegedly tried to run over ICE during an immigration crackdown in the city. This is absolute insanity. Officials are investigating an ICE-related shooting, according to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. That guy should resign. What an absolute clown he is. Trish McLaughlin. Folks, there's an atmosphere, and you see it here in Rhode Island, and you see it in the Northeast, and you definitely see it in places like Chicago and New York and certainly Minneapolis. ICE officers in Minneapolis conducting targeted operations. Rioters began blocking ICE officers. One of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle and attempted to pull a Karen Reed and run over the ICE officer, attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. An ICE officer, fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training, saved his own life, that of the fellow officers. The alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. The ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. This is, again, a statement from Trish McLaughlin. This is the direct consequences of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians like Governor Walz and Rhode Island Governor McKee, who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on law enforcement. These men and women who are simply enforcing the law on the books are facing 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000 increase in death threats. This is an evolving situation. Give the public more information as soon as it becomes available. Wow. ICE today, ICE officers in Minneapolis conducting targeted operations. Rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of them drove the vehicle right at them. Wow. All right. Now, there's also the situation with Uxbridge, and I'm going to talk about that as well. Folks, this portion of the program, ICE is no different than police that are going to pick someone up on a warrant, arrest someone, detain someone. Someone's a fugitive for justice. Someone is wanted on a bench warrant. It is no different. And it shouldn't be viewed that it is somehow different. And it's a problem in Rhode Island. And no one's calling them out. You don't see any of the media call out this foolishness and these people that break the law and target and go after these ICE officers. And I've communicated with several of them that, the ICE officers, and I've talked about this, that I know, many of them are former military. Many of them were police. They retired and now they've come back. Not all. But this whole notion has to end. And now this is ridiculous. That governor of Minnesota, and I'm sick of people like Governor McKee defending him. That Governor Walz is a clown. That guy should resign. All the fraud. Now the ICE agents couldn't even get a hotel room. What they're not even on. What are they talking about? The laws are going to be enforced. Our country, we're not run by Somalis, and we're not run by socialist illegals in the city of Providence. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Propane Plus. Remember, a great source of energy is Propane Plus. Call them today, 401-885-4209, or in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. For all your heating and cooling, you can depend on Propane Plus. Call them today, 401-885-4209, always online at propaneplus.com. Now, I also want to remind you about Watson Materials. Watson Materials, hey, the thaw is underway. Perfect time. Make the most of your outdoor space. Watson Materials. Call them, request a quote, 401-885-0600. Landscape lighting, pavers, retaining walls, natural stone, cobblestone, decorative stone. Watson Materials, 401-885-0600. Call Sean at Watson Materials. So that is very dramatic, the fact of what is going on in ICE, and that an ICE officer had to use their weapon. And you don't, as someone that follows it, you can't find an elected official right now. I'd be very curious to see how they speak out. But we know with the Democrat primary for governor between Governor McKee and Helena Foulkes, they're not going to speak out on behalf of ICE. You had Helena Folks, who was recently, making the rounds. I played some of her interview, and she just says, here's her talking point. I'm very concerned that ICE is causing harm in our communities. That is complete nonsense. Minnesota, I have visited Minnesota. To me, I had a friend that was living there at the time. I think I've been there twice, at least once. I went actually in January. It was so cold you couldn't even go outside. It it's cold, like cold that we're not used to. And what was interesting is when my friend lived, he lived in downtown Minneapolis, made famous by Mary Tyler Moore, but the buildings all connected. So he lived in an apartment building, and if we wanted to go to breakfast, there was a walkway, kind of like the at the Providence Place Mall. They have the walkway to the hotel or the convention center from the Providence Place Mall. Well, those are everywhere. And if you've ever been to Minneapolis, that's how it's so cold in the wintertime. But what they have allowed with all this Somali daycare fraud and Tim Walz, they need to get a hold of this. We need people. We need people that are going to speak out and that are going to speak out in support of ICE. And I don't know what world these people think that they're living in. And by all accounts, I'm just reporting it's an evolving situation, that we know they had a problem where a private hotel operator who was in with Hilton, tried to cancel their reservation. Oh, no, you can't stay here. You can't stay here. This Minnesota is just an absolute wreck right now. He shouldn't be in charge. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised. These are the people that gave us George Floyd, right? There was, the mayor of Minneapolis crying, and the big thing about George Floyd. I mean, they were the ones that kicked off all the riots of the summer of 2020 with the pandemic. And here it is again, causing all these problems. So now I do want to mention, and our condolences go out to the Uxbridge Police Department. Uxbridge Police have identified 43-year-old officer Stephen Laporta tragically died being struck by a vehicle on Route 146 this morning. Now, when you go northern part of the state and you take 146 and you go all the way through Lincoln, and then continuing as if you're going to Worcester, you then come upon Uxbridge, but he was struck by a vehicle. Now, we do know it was icy. I'm going to wait to see exactly how that comes out, but 43 years old, folks, it is, it's just another example that members of law enforcement, that is something that is not being, they're still killed in the line of duty. And as I have talked about, the roads, people, the behavior on the roads is just abysmal, and it's deplorable. And people, I mean, we'll wait to see exactly, but I did want to, I've had communication with Uxbridge Police in the past, and that is, and like a great officer helping a driver on an icy highway early this morning. How many times do you see that? How many times do you see where, police are out there doing their job and people just don't slow down, or the roads are a little icy, so you got to drive with caution? The crash happened on the northbound side, Route 146, mile marker 5.6, 1240, according to the Uxbridge Police Department. Identified the officer as Stephen Laporta. Just terrible. He was from June 2024, full-time officer. Previously served as a dispatcher. Pronounced dead at the scene despite life-saving efforts by emergency responders. Video from the scene showed a procession of police cruisers along with a vehicle escorting him after the crash. 146 closed for several hours while investigators processed the scene. Counseling support services made available to members of the police department. Town officials quick to hang black bunting outside the Uxbridge Police headquarters. There was no additional details regarding this. Just terrible. So, do want to wait with information we have on the Brown shooter, and then we'll also monitor what's happening as far as with Minnesota. This is ridiculous. Minnesota, those public officials are a disgrace. And, Governor McKee, he's a fellow Democrat governor. Rhode Island stands with Governor Tim Walz. No, we don't. He should go to prison, just like this is disgraceful for the amount of fraud that has been going on out there. And you got to hold these people accountable. Notice, in the world they want to live in, there's no accountability with these actions. And I mean zero. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you, though, by ServPro. So remember, when disaster strikes, call ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500. If you have a fire, you're going to have fire damage. You're going to have smoke damage, right? You're going to have water damage. They're going to put it out. Then you could have mold. ServPro of Providence. When disaster strikes, everything changes. Call ServPro of Providence. Most of the time, it's someone, if you have a pipe burst and suddenly everything is flooded, or if you have a fire, ServPro, 401-941-5500. Now, this person, they did try to run an ICE officer down. A car can be used as a weapon, as we have seen it used in the past. Hey, you don't do that. You don't end your vehicle. What part of that do they not understand? These people are delusional. Now, I also want to mention, last night, I thought what happened at the Rhode Island State House last night, I thought it was embarrassing. A candlelight vigil to honor the 5-year anniversary of January. Yeah, January 6th was a raucous day. In January 6th, some people got out of control. But I want to remind people, for those that, listen, obviously as a supporter of law enforcement, I don't like seeing it either. But the fact of the matter is, January 6th, and I'm not going to relive the whole thing, but we watched an entire summer of these people burning and destroying, doing hundreds of billions of dollars of damage in all the major U.S. cities in this country, major cities in the country, with virtually no consequences. And so on that day, when people were upset, and by the way, in Rhode Island, no one's going to tell me that election was legitimate. There's no way, with the amount of mail ballots and campaign ballots. So it got a little out of control. It did. But 5 years later, with everything going on in the world, and they're up at the State House and the No Kings and the candlelight vigil, I can't even look at it. I couldn't believe it was going on. So I know some people want to go after some of the actions of the crowd. Okay, but you have to look. It was 5 years ago, and pale in comparison. It's not like the crowd burned the Capitol down. Ashley Babbitt was the one that was killed. So I did make a comment. I thought, the candlelight vigil last night at the State House, it's just, and our media, the way they cover them, it's just lunacy what goes on. And it's just so biased right now. So, but you don't see anyone call out what's going on. ICE is getting harassed here. The Providence City Council members going after Providence police, not to cooperate with ICE. And what I'm saying is, I believe there needs to be a louder voice of an elected official. And I don't think we have one right now. Now, as far as the Brown shooter, if there are people, I will tell you, there is no evidence of a cover-up. There is no evidence that somehow this guy is being set up and blah, blah, blah. We've learned a lot more since that happened at Brown University. but the information that I have from people, and I take them at their word, who I trust and have worked with, is that this individual, I saw someone post a comment saying, I thought this guy was supposed to be really smart. Well, yeah, but he was also mentally ill. I mean, there's a lot of people who there's a difference between someone who may be very intelligent and able to solve complicated problems. It doesn't make them sane. If anything, the video, what we've learned of this paranoid, delusional individual, the gunman, he was insane. And the fact that he was saying, and I'm not insane, we did learn a lot. But I want to address, if there's people saying, and there's a difference between people saying, I want to see the video. And just be clear, that's what you're saying. You're saying you want to see the video. Not that there's anything, it's not going to help the investigation in any way. But there are people, they won't say that. They're dancing around it. But what they Okay, and we are back. Sorry about that, everybody. Yes. All right. I don't blame people for being and wondering what exactly is going on. We had a minor glitch there. I mean, I am hardwired in. I won't bore you with the details, but for whatever reason, suddenly we were knocked offline. So, but we are online. It's 1:35, and I apologize for some of the dramatics that we have had. But I want to just touch on, we did learn a lot regarding the Brown gunman. One of the things that we learned is he had been planning this for a long time, and that is not good for Brown. This was not random. He even described, so, and I also want people to understand, so they have videos that he filmed of himself. And it sounds as though one of his eyes, he is in pain, but he's basically ready to see about the whether or not he, in fact, he's even saying he's not sure if he can end his life. He is talking about. So, so what happens is, what did we learn? We learned that this is someone who describes that he was paranoid and felt people were against him from a very young age. He may have been, and we have every reason to believe he had smarts, but he sounds, it was really something wrong with this guy. He had the storage facility in New Hampshire, he said, for several years. I also want to explain, these were videos he made, and they released the transcript of the videos. And I think, number one, I think people don't understand what a transcript. If you're one of those people saying, I need to see this video, you don't need to see the video. It would be very traumatizing to the students that witness that if, in fact, suddenly his video and voice was everywhere. He says it in Portuguese. He talks about saying, I don't hate America, but I don't love America. He had been thinking about doing this for quite some time. But I will say, a transcript is, in fact, it's the transcript of what was said in the video. Now, I'm telling you, this isn't a trial. There's no reason to release that video. So stop saying, I need to see the video, or there's a cover up with the video. There is no evidence of any cover up. There's no evidence that he has just been put forward as like a fall guy or something like that. But what else did we learn? We learned that he even mentions the homeless guy, John, who scared him off, who had the confrontation. He says in this video, now again, it's a transcript. A transcript is the video runs and we get to read exactly what he's saying. Again, we don't need to see him saying these things. He's in a storage unit. He possibly seems to be wounded. He feels he's saying that he feels near. He wants a couple of hours, afraid that they're going to come and find him. And so he is rambling on in that way. He does mock the students of Brown University. A pathetic individual. And we don't need to have his face everywhere. We don't need that. We don't need video of him. He talks about that there were times were seen by that janitor, Derek Lisi, in the building. And he told some third-party security person who basically said, I'm just here to work the event. I'm not like police. But it's very possible prior to that he was going to do that, and he said he kept chickening out. So he was trying to, and it's not courage. It's not courage, by the way. And he said, John, that's right. John knew his license plate. He was then saying, I'm surprised they haven't found me yet. He thought that police must have located the homeless person first, because he then said, I had time, something akin to, I had time to do the other one, meaning the MIT professor in Brookline, that he basically executed that brilliant MIT professor. There's no motive listed. I did see someone earlier, we need to see these videos so the families can have closure. And then this person went on to say that they have a family member who's a student at Brown. If that is the case, then that student at Brown should, when they get back to the campus, should contact someone in the administration and say, I am a student at Brown and I demand to be able to see these videos. And then that's a combination for them in Brown. I don't think the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, Leah Flea, I don't think she's going to, oh, okay, this person wants to see it. I know some people wouldn't know what I'm talking about, but there was someone that was on the page and saying, I'm the grandparent and we need full disclosure of, you don't need full disclosure. You don't need full disclosure of the video. That's someone that for whatever reason, they want to see it. But I'm telling you, I don't think it affects the investigation. He goes on to mention that he was aware that John, that homeless person, had taken down his plate. It almost sounds as though, and again, we're talking about videos made by the Brown gunman where they released the transcript. And it sounds as though he was surprised that police didn't learn that from the homeless guy right away and that they didn't track him down. Because he mentions that, that he thought they could trace the car and then they could trace him to the rental place. But when he made these videos, and they're short, he's in the rental unit in Salem, New Hampshire. And it sounds like when he went to shoot and he did shoot and kill the MIT professor, that one of the bullets, a fragment, ricocheted, and he didn't have his glasses on. He was afraid they'd fog up, so it hit one of his eyes. But he mentions, I fully expect that you people are going to find me and my car. Because his car pulled like right there. So clearly, he probably, it sounds like he had trouble driving from Brookline to the New Hampshire storage facility because we don't, was he bleeding? It sounds like it. That a fragment hit his eye. That's one of those things that things can go wrong. That's why when people are in fact a real expert, they wear eyewear. You wear eyewear at a range to make sure nothing hits your eye, and a lot of times covers your ears and so forth. And what he was involved with was unplanned. So it wasn't perfect, but to me, he comes off just a pathetic, disgraceful. Him mocking the students, saying, and they were hiding, and there was an exit right there that they could have run out of, and mocking the Brown students, who obviously were unarmed, that didn't know that there was no reason. He doesn't state why he killed the students from Brown. He doesn't explain why he went and shot up. He initially said he wanted to do it in a classroom, and somehow he walked into the auditorium. It sounds like, when I read the transcript, and again, it is on the website, depetrow.com, it sounds as though he wasn't expecting that people were going to be in the auditorium, because he said, I wanted to do it in a classroom. And he almost, the way I read it, he seemed caught off guard when he went into the auditorium. And he didn't yell, he said, I didn't yell Allah Akbar. Keep in mind, as he's doing this video, they had to translate. He's talking in Portuguese. But it sounds like he was startled that there was someone in the auditorium. And then he just started firing and then made his exit. But he was well aware of the homeless individual. And he was well aware the homeless individual, had his plate. But just so, and I get it, by not releasing the video, that will fuel some people. No, I think that's asking too much. There's no reason. We know who he is. They have video. We have no reason to believe that someone forced him to do the videos and then they took him out. I admit the whole thing, it is very strange. It's very odd. Where I think this looks bad for Brown is how he mentions he had been thinking about doing it for a while. So what does that mean? It means they certainly had ample opportunity in the past to maybe prevent this. I recognize, because I've seen some of the postings, people don't like that to me, it speaks volumes that head of, they called him that Chapman. Rodney Chapman was the vice president of public safety. That guy had never been a police officer. I get you're on a college campus and people, some of the students and protesters, we don't want to live in a prison. We don't want all these cameras. But ultimately, you're responsible for the safety of everyone. And you just wonder if someone differently would have said, I'm sorry that they're upset, but we're going to have cameras in that building. Now, I have no reason to believe there are cameras in that building. There's two parts of the building. In one part of the building, there are cameras. And in one part of the building, you do see students running. That doesn't add to the investigation. I'm saying, I believe that if there's anyone out there that is saying and it's the word that I admit I harp on, is the need. I need to see those videos. I'd be riding with my children and they'd say, I need ice cream. You'd say, no, you want ice cream. There's a difference between wants and needs. No, you want to see the video. There's no need for you to see the video of this guy in the storage facility, as he sounds like he's wounded in one of his eyes and he's just ranting on. And he's basically feels he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. People don't need to see that. They need to make changes at Brown. They need to improve their security at Brown. And it is, yeah, but you also have to step back. There were people initially that said there were cameras in that building. Well, there are cameras. There's not cameras in that part of the building. There's no cameras in that part of the building. And the people that have told me that, I fully believe and trust. I do. It doesn't make me naive. They're people that I've worked with and had relationships with. But a transcript is basically him talking, but they just print what he said. Some people, I never realized, folks. I got to admit, social media is always an eye-opener for me. It's an education when people that clearly don't know what a transcript means. Because people were saying, hey, I don't understand. This? No, it's a transcript of the video. It's a transcript of what he said. It's not a written manifesto that he had put out. So, but again, many times in depositions, many times if you follow a court case, they'll go back and they have a transcript of grand jury testimony. They transcript of when they first testified. Right? They don't say, all right, now let's play the video. Here's what you said. They, fresh your memory. Here's a transcript of what you said. So right now, with some of the tools that I use, there's a transcript of everything that I'm saying. But no, I don't believe we need to see that. I think it is a little gory that some people would. That guy is such a zero in what he did and killed those two young students for no reason. They didn't know him. They had never wronged him. That wasn't a vengeful act. They didn't know who he was. That wasn't a robbery gone bad. He is just a pathetic, evil coward, a deranged, what a zero, a true zero. And no, we don't need to see, I don't believe we don't need to see the video of him talking about what he had done. Hey, folks, I want to remind you, when you're talking about safety, remember Capital Fence, capitalfenceri.com. You can call Capital Fence at 401-618-4407, 401-618-4407, online at capitalfenceri.com. Call owner Mike Rizzo. Remember, residential or commercial, a fence gate adds a lot of property, plus peace of mind, plus safety. Most trusted for privacy, security, serving Rhode Island and Massachusetts, whether it's residential, commercial, highest quality, it'll last for years. Free estimate, any job, Capital Fence. Call Mike Rizzo today. And remember, they're licensed insured. It could be vinyl, it could be picket, it could be chain link, it could be custom. Whatever you want, whatever you need is more important. 401-618-4407 for Capital Fence. Now, we also have a situation that's going on right now. As I have said, I think the moves in Venezuela were just fantastic. So I think, hold on one moment. Okay, there we go. And right now there is a situation where the U.S. has seized Russian flagged tankers. It was a dramatic chase. That was Venezuelan oil, and we are not handing it over. So, okay. That's good to know. Okay, good. A little bit of a challenging broadcast. This is it to me. I stand by the moves that were made. Let me just see some of these headlines. Brutal Maduro enforcer standing in President Trump's way. Yeah, we'll see about that. Repression intensifies in Caracas. U.S. demands Venezuela sever all ties with Russia, Cuba, Iran, and I believe China. I read China. I don't know why this story is English China. U.S. seizes Russian flagged tankers. Listen, that is no longer their oil. That is our oil. I know a lot of people don't want to realize this or deal with it, but in fact, we have been in a trade war. And this is a trade war. This is a trade war. We try to deal and trade with the rest of the world fairly. And the fact of the matter is, you have countries like Russia and China and Cuba and Iran, and they don't want to deal fairly with the United States. And so, oh, here it is. Yeah. U.S. demands from Venezuela sever economic ties with Iran, Cuba, China, and Russia. Good. Yeah. Those are our enemies. We're in a trade war. Maybe some people don't understand what the word war means. We're in a war. Russia, China, I'm not worried about Cuba and Iran. They're bit players that China and Russia use as a puppet to manipulate. But we are in a trade war with Russia. And Russia and China are trying to destroy the United States. And we have demonstrated for the world that that's not going to happen. And they're going to get that oil from Venezuela. And it sure sounds like Iceland is going to play a larger role. To me, anyone that is questioning our actions right now, in my mind, they don't fully recognize and identify that we're in a war. This is a war. Now, it's not the type of war, traditional type of war, but we are definitely right now in a battle, and we have to be. And thank God we have the right leader. Can you imagine? Think of this. Anytime, and I want to remind people, and again, you don't see any coverage of this, but anytime you hear any criticism from Senator Sheldon Whitehouse or Congressman Seth Magaziner or Gabe Amo or Governor McKee or Elizabeth Warren, just remember they all voted for Harris and Tim Walz. If they had their way, Kamala Harris would be the president and Walz would be VP, and all this fraud would be washed away. You're talking billions in fraud. And I would even argue, I think that's why, like, to me, bringing all these Somalis in here and giving them millions of dollars and billions in fraud, I think it's even traitorous. So that's why I reacted when I saw there were people actually last night. Now, I know in Washington that there were people in the Democrats, and you see Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the rest of the candlelight vigil of January 6th and blah, blah, blah. But I admit, I didn't realize it was going to go on locally. But to me, like the nerve of that crowd, just so you're clear, I can't imagine being part of a group where they say, like, we're going to all gather tonight and we're depending on you being there and you stand and hold a candle. That would be it. I don't think I would do it in a hostage situation. I can't. I look at them like they are from another planet. You stand at the Rhode Island State House with signs that say no kings, and you're holding your little candle because of January 6th at the Capitol. Look at, you want to talk about betrayal, talk about traitorous actions. How about a full-scale effort going on in California, Minneapolis to completely rip off the United States of America? That I knew that Omar should be in charge. Gabe Amo, Rep. Omar is a trusted ally of Rhode Island. She belongs in prison. Governor McKee, Governor Walz is a friend of Rhode Island. Walz should be in prison. That Keith Ellison should be in prison. Bunch of frauds. They're thieves. Are you hearing some of the money that was coming out of there where some of these Somalis are driving Rolls Royces and expensive $250 million? And it's just absolute fraud. And the people that were supporting that, like, how did he end up on the ticket? Harris chose him. She didn't want to pick Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. If Governor McKee and Seth Magaziner and Sheldon Whitehouse, if they had their way, it would be President Kamala Harris. Folks, do you have any idea what the country would be like right now? She was in favor of open borders, and that loudmouth buffoon, Walz, would be the vice president, and they'd be burying all this. We are never going back to that. We are never going back to that. No, they're going to be held accountable for all the fraud. 100%. I could not believe. Like I thought it was actually a fake photo. And they even had that stupid No King sign up there, holding your little candle. Who was the vigil for? For Ashley Babbitt? She was the one that was shot and killed. So that is just, to me, beyond the pale. So, listen, it's a very dicey situation that is on right now with ICE, not around the country, certainly in our area, but where they don't get the support that they need. But right now, the situation in Minnesota is just so beyond the pale. And, some of these, the enforcers in Venezuela, they're no match for the U.S. military. ICE agents fatally shoot. Now, they're saying a woman in Minneapolis, but she was trying to use the car to run them down. So, I haven't seen that part. All right. Well, listen, everyone. I apologize. We're getting closer. We're upgrading system. Apologize. We had some glitches. The good news is it's going to be corrected. The good news is we're getting closer. It's a new year. We're going to straighten this out. I want to thank Pete. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll watch to see if there's any action later, but also condolences go out to the Sturbridge police. So if you listen to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news.